The notification stayed on her phone screen for less than 3 seconds before she swiped it away. But I had already seen the name. Spence. Thursday still on. Can't stop thinking about you. Spence. My best friend for 17 years. The man who gave the toast at my wedding. The man who sat next to me in that hospital waiting room the night my father had his first heart attack. That's Spence. My wife hadn't seen me look. She was already halfway to the kitchen, laughing at something on a podcast, asking over her shoulder if I wanted coffee. I said sure. I kept my voice completely level. I had no idea yet exactly what I was going to do. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. They were never going to see it coming. My name is Darrell. I'm 47 years old. I run a mid-sized construction supply company out of Augusta, Georgia, lumber, roofing materials, hardware to contractors across 3 counties. I built it from a single warehouse and a used truck I bought for $11,000. 15 years later, we have 4 locations and 32 employees. My father ran a similar business before his health gave out. He always said a man's word was his bond. I believe that. I still do. I met my wife Laine at a charity auction 11 years ago. She was bidding on a wine tasting package she didn't end up winning, and she laughed about losing it in a way that completely disarmed me. She worked in corporate communications. Smart, organized, the kind of person who remembered everything you told her. We dated for a year, got married, bought a house on the north side of town. No kids. It just never happened, and after a while it stopped being something we talked about. Life was comfortable. Good. Even. Or so I thought. Spence had been part of my life since I was 30. We met at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast, hit it off immediately over bad coffee and worse Danish pastries. He sold commercial insurance. He was loud where I was quiet, impulsive where I was careful. His wife Trudy was warm and funny. We'd been to their house every 4th of July for 6 years. I knew which soccer league their daughter played in. I'd written a card for every one of her birthdays since she was 4 years old. The signs with Laine had been building for about 4 months. Subtle things. She started going to yoga 3 mornings a week, which was fine, except she had never been a morning person in our entire marriage. New perfume appeared in the bathroom, something I hadn't picked, and she never mentioned buying. She started keeping her phone face down on every surface in the house. When she laughed at text messages, she angled the screen away. Before she typed back, I told myself I was projecting. I was under pressure at work. A major contractor had pulled his account after a billing dispute, and I was still rebuilding that relationship. I had real reasons to be stressed, real reasons to let things slide. But then I saw that notification. Spence. Thursday still on. Can't stop thinking about you. I didn't say a word about it that evening. Or the next day. What I did instead was start paying attention in a way I should have started months earlier. Thursday nights. I went back through Laine's recent excuses in my head. Book club. A late call with her regional manager. Drinks with coworkers she referred to collectively and never individually. Dinner with a client she mentioned once and never brought up again. Always a Thursday. Nearly every single one, for at least 4 months. I watched Spence too. I texted him that Friday to see about grabbing lunch the following week, same as we sometimes did. He responded quickly. Buried this week. Next week for sure. Thumbs up emoji. I stared at that thumbs up for a long time. I called Orville Fenn on a Monday morning. Orville had done background verification for my company a few years back, vetting contractors, checking credentials, before we signed large supply agreements. He was 61, former state investigator, ran a small private firm out of a strip mall office that looked like nothing from the outside. He answered on the second ring. We met at a diner near the interstate. He was already in a corner booth when I arrived, drinking black coffee. He put his phone away when he saw me. I laid it all out, the notification, the pattern of Thursdays, the name behind the message. Orville listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked one question. You know this man well. 17 years, I said. He was my best man at my wedding. Orville nodded once, slowly, the way someone nods when they've heard something many times, but still find it worth acknowledging. 1,500 up front, he said. I'll tail her. If there's something to find, you'll have it within 2 weeks. I didn't hesitate. I wrote the check before he finished his coffee. Orville started the following Thursday. I went to work like normal. Made the rounds at 2 of my locations. Sat through a vendor call I barely heard. Around 7 that evening, Laine texted me. Girls' dinner running long. Don't wait up. Girls' dinner. She'd never named which girls. At 9:11, Orville texted me a single line. She's at the Addison on Route 9, room 214. He arrived 9 minutes after she did. I have photos. I sat in my truck in the parking lot of my own warehouse and read that message 4 times. The Addison was not cheap. Lobby bar, valet parking, the kind of place that showed up on best of lists in local magazines. Whoever was covering those Thursday nights was not cutting corners. I typed back, get everything. Orville sent the full report Friday morning. I drove to his office and sat across from his desk while he slid a manila folder toward me. The first photo was timestamped 8:49 p.m. Laine crossing the lobby of the Addison in a dress I recognized. She told me she bought it for a work conference last spring. The second photo, Spence 2 steps behind her, his hand on the small of her back as they stepped into the elevator together. I did not need anyone to tell me who he was. I had known his face for 17 years. I had watched him coach his daughter's soccer games. I had sat beside him in the front pew at my father's funeral while he put his hand on my shoulder and told me it was going to be okay. I closed the folder. There's more, Orville said. He'd done additional digging on his own initiative. Spence had a secondary email registered to a prepaid account. He had a P.O. box under a variation of his middle name. Based on records Orville had accessed through legal means, the pattern went back at least 10 months. 10 months.
Yeah.
His wife, Orville said carefully, doesn't appear to know anything. Trudy, who had cried at my wedding because she said it was the most romantic thing she had ever attended. I stood up, thanked him, paid the balance, and left. That same afternoon, I called Rowena, the woman who had managed both my company finances and our personal accounts for 8 years. I asked her to go through every joint account and credit card under my name and Laine's name for the past 12 months. Everything? She asked. Everything. She called me back Tuesday afternoon. Darrell, she said, and I could hear the shape of the news before she said another word. There are transfers I can't account for, out of the joint savings. Out of the joint savings. 12 separate transactions over 8 months. The total is $43,000. I pressed 2 fingers to the bridge of my nose. Where did it go? A personal account in Laine's name only. Opened about 9 months ago. 9 months ago. 1 month before Orville estimated the hotel stays began. She had not just been building something with someone else. She had been building an exit. That night Laine came home and made pasta and told me about a client who had changed the scope of a project 3 times in 2 weeks. I sat at the table and ate and asked follow-up questions and thought about $43,000 moving quietly out of our life. I called the attorney the next morning. His name was Dolan. A divorce lawyer referred to me by a contractor friend who had gone through a difficult split a few years back. Reputation for being thorough and direct. Second floor office downtown, no frills waiting room, a man who did not enjoy small talk. I walked him through everything. He listened, with his hands folded on the desk. Prenuptial agreement, he asked. Signed before we married. The house is in my name, predates the marriage. The business is mine, same. She brought her car and a savings account. That's what she came in with. He allowed himself a measured look of satisfaction. Then we are in a very strong position. The financial transfers will be characterized as marital waste. She moved community funds without your knowledge or consent. We can recover that, or use it as leverage against her position. I want to move quickly, I said. I don't want her to have time to prepare a counter. Papers can be filed by Wednesday. She'll be served Thursday. Thursday. Her day. I sat with that for a moment. Then I said, do it. I was 2 days from filing when Laine's younger sister called me. Her name was Bet. She and I had always gotten along well in that comfortable, low-maintenance way you develop with in-laws when a marriage is working. She rarely called me directly. When her name showed on my screen mid-afternoon, I knew before I answered. "Darrell," she said, not waiting for me to speak. "I need to see you." Not over the phone. We met at a coffee shop across town, one neither of us had reason to go to regularly. Bet looked exhausted when I sat down across from her. She wrapped both hands around her cup, like she needed something to hold. "I've known for 6 weeks," she said. "Laine told me herself. She came to me because she needed someone and she believed I'd keep her confidence." Bet stared at the table. "I should have called you the same day. I haven't slept properly since." "Why are you telling me now?" "Because I heard her on the phone last week." She looked up. She was talking to someone, I think an attorney. She was asking about the house, the business, the accounts, what she might be entitled to if she filed first. Bet's voice dropped. "I think she's trying to move before you find out." So Laine had her own calendar. She had been running the same calculation I had, just a few steps behind me. "Is there anything else?" I asked. Bet hesitated. "She told me she'd been unhappy for a long time. She said you were a good man, but the wrong man." She met my eyes. "I'm sorry, Darrell. You deserve to hear this from someone who respected you enough to tell you." I drove home slowly after that. Sat in my garage, with the engine off for a few minutes, watching the door to the house. A good man, but the wrong man. 11 years. And that was the verdict she had been reaching in hotel rooms. Every Thursday for 10 months. $43,000. Shifted quietly into her own account. And she had been planning to file first. I called Dolan from the garage. "Move it up," I said. "File tomorrow. I want her served Thursday." Wednesday morning, the papers were filed. The joint accounts were frozen. I opened a formal inquiry with the bank regarding the transfers. I also called the leasing company that held the note on Laine's car, a lease we had co-signed, and arranged a voluntary repossession pickup for Thursday afternoon while she was at work. There was one more thing I needed to handle. I drove to Spence's office building. Not to confront him. Not then. I walked into the lobby and asked the receptionist to deliver an envelope when he was available. Inside was a single printed photo from Orville's report, time-stamped, and a handwritten note. "2 years ago, you borrowed $25,000 from me for what you called a real estate opportunity. I have since learned what that money was actually used for. My attorney has reviewed the situation. You have 30 days to repay the full amount, or I file a civil claim. There is no third option." Darrell. He had paid me back $5,000 of it over the months that followed the original loan, then gone quiet every time I brought it up. I had let it go, because that is what you do with someone you trust. Now, I knew what the $20,000 had paid for. 10 months of Thursday nights at the Addison is not cheap. A man funding an affair on a borrowed 20 grand does not worry too much about his best friend's patience. That evening, I also put together an envelope for Trudy. Her home address was easy to find. I mailed it Thursday morning with a handwritten note explaining who I was and what I had discovered, and copies of 2 of Orville's photos. She deserved to know. She deserved to be the one who got to decide what she did with that knowledge. Thursday came. I went to work. Normal day. Staff meeting, materials order, a call with a vendor about a delayed shipment. At 2:17 in the afternoon, the leasing company confirmed Laine's car had been picked up from her company's parking garage. At 6:40, she texted me, "Dinner with the Petersons tonight. Might run late." The Petersons. A name she deployed the way people deploy placeholder names. Plausible, unverifiable, forgettable. I texted back, "Sounds good. Drive safe." Then I put my phone in my pocket and drove home. The locksmith had been there that afternoon. New deadbolt, new code on the keypad alarm system, updated to a sequence Laine did not know. I moved through the house and took down the framed photos from the mantel and put them in a box in the spare closet. Not out of anger, just because I was done. At 10:48, my phone lit up. Laine calling. I let it ring. At 10:53, a text. "Darrell, my car isn't in the garage. I think it got towed or something. Can you come get me?" I set the phone face down on the coffee table. She took a rideshare home. I watched from upstairs as the car pulled up to the curb a little before midnight. She got out, walked to the front door, tried her key. It did not turn. She tried again. She stepped back and looked up at the house. Then she noticed the envelope on the doorstep. She crouched down and opened it. I watched her pull out the top sheet of the divorce papers and read. She stood up slowly. She tried her key one more time, like maybe it had been a mistake the first 2 times. Then she just stood there on the front step with the papers in her hand. She called me 3 times. I let each one go. On the 4th call, I picked up. Silence on her end for a moment. Just her breathing. Darrell. Her voice was very quiet. I know about the hotel, I said. I know about the account you opened 9 months ago. I know about all of it. A long pause. Can we please talk about this? She said. Her voice had shifted into something careful, something that was working very hard to stay controlled. If you just let me in, we can sit down and... The papers are filed. The accounts are frozen. Your attorney will have copies by morning. I let that settle. I hope it was worth it, Laine. I ended the call. She sat on the front step for a while. Eventually, a car came to get her sister, I assumed, and she was gone before 1 in the morning. I poured the bourbon I had been saving for the occasion into the sink, and I went to bed, and I slept better than I had in 4 months. The next morning, Spence came to the warehouse. I was in the back office when my floor manager knocked and said there was someone at the door who said it was personal. I already knew who it was. Spence looked like he had spent the night staring at the ceiling. He came in with his hands slightly raised, the body language of a man walking into something he knew he deserved. Darrell, he started, I need you to hear me out. Close the door, I said. He did. I know there's nothing I can say that fixes this, he said. I know that, but you have to know that I never wanted to hurt you. This wasn't something I planned. I don't want to hear how it started, I said. I want to talk about the $20,000 you still owe me. He stopped. The envelope was clear, I said. 30 days, full repayment, or I file a civil claim. My attorney has documented the original transfer and has a strong circumstantial case for how the funds were used. Darrell, come on, 17 years. I know how long we've been friends. I let that sit. Trudy received an envelope yesterday. I imagine she has questions for you. Something behind his eyes went very still. You didn't have to do that, he said softly. She deserved to know, I said, the same way I deserve to know. He looked at the floor. His jaw was moving, but nothing was coming out. Close the door on your way out, I said, and I turned back to the freight invoice on my desk. He left. 3 weeks later, Dolan called with a summary. Laine's attorney had attempted to challenge the prenuptial agreement on grounds of duress, a standard maneuver when you have no better play, equivalency, Dolan said. The prenup was airtight. She received her personal belongings, her clothing, and the savings account she had brought into the marriage. The $43,000 in the separate account was treated as marital waste. Most of it came back through the settlement. The house was mine. The business was mine. The divorce would be final in 60 days. Spence sent a cashier's check for the full $20,000 2 weeks after he came to see me. No note. I deposited it the same morning and did not acknowledge it. Trudy filed for divorce within 10 days of receiving my envelope. From what Bet told me, we had stayed in touch, which turned out to be a quiet, unexpected comfort. Trudy had taken her daughter and moved back to her parents' home in Savannah. Spence had left the insurance firm, under circumstances that remained vague in the telling. Laine's brother called me once to say I had handled everything wrong, that I should have given people the chance to explain themselves. I told him I understood his loyalty to his sister and that I hoped she would be happy. He hung up. That was fine. The house took some adjustment, just the way any space does, when you remove the presence that had been filling half of it. I rearranged things, cooked differently, let some silence settle in where I used to fill it with noise. Bet came by a couple of months after the divorce was finalized, on a Sunday afternoon. She had been keeping her distance from Laine, she said. She was not ready to be her sister's confidant again, not yet. Not while she was still working through what it had meant to be asked to carry that secret. How are you actually doing? She asked. Better than I expected, I said. and I meant it. I had hired a new operations manager at the warehouse. Someone sharp and straightforward, referred to me by a client I trusted completely. The business had, if anything, improved. I had been burning mental energy for months, trying to explain things to myself that did not need to be explained, only seen clearly. There is something clarifying about the truth, even when it is brutal. For months, I had been carrying a weight I could not name. The moment I found the name for it, I could finally set it down. I am a patient man. I have always thought of it as a practical quality, useful in business, useful in negotiations. You do not panic. You do not rush. You wait for the right conditions. But patience is also what let me sit at that dinner table every evening for 4 months, eating the meals she cooked, and asking about her day and saying goodnight, while I quietly built the case that would protect everything I had spent my life creating. They thought I was oblivious. They thought because I was steady, I was blind. The strongest thing you can do when someone bets against you is win without raising your voice. No performance, no scene, just the work. Done right, done completely, done before they ever knew it was coming. That was all I needed to do.